Do you want to be right or do you want to be married? It was very much, it's my way or your local highway. I can't have this constant need to be right overpower my need to like understand my partner. Hate to say it, but I was that person. You're in that what's your favorite color phase. Once you raise your voice at me, honey, I completely clock out. You know I'm very much team leave him.
Absolutely, because who you talking to?
That is hard to do. And you just want to, just hop in. And I know it's hard for black men to open up, child. Slow roll it back. It's about the team. It's about the partnership. You're not their parent.
Check your tone.
You cannot attract bees with vinegar. We listen, but we do not judge. Honey, don't fall in love with potential. Hello beautiful, welcome back to my channel. If you're here for the first time, my name is Shay Nicole and I love creating content to help elevate your confidence in style and self-care while also dropping gems for my current and aspiring content creators. I'm so glad you're here. Now let's get into today's girl talk because honey, the title is a little spicy. It asks, do you want to be right or do you want to be married? Now this question comes from one of the best pieces of advice that I received, well Jeremiah and I both received, 2020 when we started our premarital counseling. And it really changed the game for me. It changed the perspective for me in so many ways, but especially when I think about communication, which is essentially what this vlog is going to be about. I feel like communication has got to be one of the biggest downfalls when it comes to relationships. Whether you are in the dating stage, the talking stage, the getting to know each other stage, or you are full-blown engaged, already married, or on the journey to get married, communication is it. Like communication, good communication can solve so many problems. And I feel like a lot of issues, mostly the root begins with bad communication or a lack of clear communication, honest communication. And I wanted to make this video because I feel like every time I turn around, honey, I'm seeing the girls are not having a lot of tolerance. The girls are not dealing with much, you know, and I love that. Let me say that. I really love how women are setting their boundaries. I love how women are standing up for themselves and saying, I'm not putting up with no mess. You know, I'm very much team leave him. If you didn't know, now you know. I'm not here for being dragged through the dirt just to get a ring, just to get to the altar. Absolutely not. I don't believe in that. However, I do think, and I know from experience that we need some conflict resolution skills, and I feel like that's becoming a lost art. I don't think our generation does the best job at that, and it's getting worse with every generation after that. And it's not just our fault, you know what I'm saying? It's not coming from like we just woke up one day and decided we don't want to communicate. There are a lot of reasons why most women these days that I speak to about, you know, dating advice and just wanting to be married, I see that there's a clear trend where most women, there's a reason why they're like, yo, I don't have no tolerance for nothing. Like, I'm not gonna stick around for no mess. And on the flip side of that, there are women who will stick around for all the mess. Like they'll stick around to the very end. So for me, when I think about the journey to marriage and, you know, wanting to strengthen your relationship and make it to the altar, communication is essential. And I think that good communication will help you weed out those who are not meant for you, as well as help you strengthen your relationship to get to the altar and to stay married. Because the goal is not to just get married, but to what actually stay married forever, right? So the question of, do you want to be right or do you want to be married? That comes from our need as women. We're really men too, but I can only speak from perspective of me because I'm a woman. Our need to be right and to stand in it and knowing that we're right and knowing that you can't tell us nothing, like that is very deep rooted. And I could write an essay on this, but I'm gonna speak from my personal experience. I struggled with this so much when it came to communication, not just with Jeremiah and my marriage, but literally in probably every relationship I was ever in since the beginning of time. I think as a young black girl, I often struggled with the need to feel heard. Like I don't feel like I was always heard. You know, I grew up in a strict household. I was a PK, preacher's kid, or pastor's kid, however you want to call it. I don't feel like, you know, my opinions and my thoughts were always taken into consideration. And growing up, I felt the need to make sure that like I was very vocal about things and make sure that I was seen, I was heard, I was valued. And when I knew something, honey, it was nothing you could tell me. Like my need to be right overpowered a lot. And that might be because of like my type A personality. That might be because, you know, I just developed into like an extrovert over time. I'm not really sure. That's something that I can talk to my therapist about. But I found in my relationships that a lot of the arguments and debates you know, I would stand 10 toes down and like, I'm right, you're wrong. And that's that. I would have no empathy, no sympathy, honey. It was very much, it's my way or your local highway. And over time, I realized like, I can't have this constant need to be right overpower my need to like understand my partner. And I realized, you know, it took me some years, but I realized to get to marriage, you have to become a team, right? And if we're playing on the same team, it's really not about a right or a wrong. It's about like, what is our common goal together? And if we have a common shared goal and a shared interest, we need to be working together to like accomplish that goal and get to that next level. And that's where basically the question, do you want to be right or do you want to be married, comes into play. And this question is something I feel like you should ask yourself in any level of relationship you're in. You should always stop and pause to ask the question, do you want to be right or do you want to be married? Because conflict is going to come. Like, that's just very natural. You're going to get into debates. You're going to get into arguments. I try not to use the word argument because I feel like it has a negative connotation. So I'll say something like heated debate or a spicy conversation. But either way, whatever you want to call it, it's going to happen. And sometimes as women, I feel like we have this need to like prove ourselves. And again, it could be deep rooted. A lot of us have a history of not being heard. Like I just told you about my childhood. I feel like my needs and my wants were not always prioritized in my family because again, I grew up in the church. Church was the only thing that was a priority. Like Sunday school, morning worship, Bible study, revival, prayer calls. Like that was the priority for our entire household. Again, my father was a pastor, so he led the household. That was it, right? So my needs and my wants and things that I really yearned for, it was put on the back burner. So by the time I became a young adult, going into college and getting in relationships and starting to date, I was just so strong-minded. Like I just knew what I wanted. I stood 10 toes down in it. And if you weren't really trying to compromise, if you weren't trying to hear me out, if you weren't really seeing what I was seeing and seeing the picture the way my view was, then oh well, you either had to go, or worse, I would still date and talk with you, but I would also be talking to people on the side. Like, yes, hate to say it, but I was that person. So in this video, I definitely want to break down like the different aspects of communication and how you can save yourself from even wasting time and getting to the point where you know, you're in a toxic situation or in a relationship you have no business being in by strengthening your communication early. And by you strengthening your own communication skills, you'll be able to spot out very quickly when someone's just not on your level. And then on the other side, I also in this video want to address, if you're already in a relationship or you're getting towards that, some of the ways that you all can strengthen your communication so that you can see yourself as a team and not feel the need to be right all the time, okay? Because it's not that serious. I mean, yes, obviously we want to feel justified in our feelings. We want to feel like our feelings are very valid. We want to feel heard, but there's a way to do that without diminishing someone else's wants, without diminishing someone else's needs. And that is a big part of good, healthy communication. So first, I want to address, for those of you who are in the dating phase right now, you're in that get to know me phase, you're in that what's your favorite color phase that we like to call it. Whoo, child. My heart goes out to you because I understand firsthand how it is to be a young adult and just out here dating while you're also trying to build your career. You're trying to, you know, get your life together and really get into adulthood. It can be very hard and strenuous to be in the dating world. So my heart goes out to you. But what I want you to focus on right now is, how do you communicate? Like, ask yourself, what type of communicator are you? Are you a straightforward person? Are you very sarcastic? Are you someone that will, you know, put things on the back burner and sweep things under the rug and not really address things head on? Are you very blunt? Do you know, shy away from tough conversations? What type of communicator are you? You need to figure that out today, tonight. Like, sit down, write it down. Go ask ChatGPT, take a personality quiz, a test. Like, there are so many resources that are free online to help you figure out what type of communicator are you, because there's different levels. Like I said, you have your straight shooters. People are head on. They don't wait. They want to address it right then and there, nip it in the bud. Then there are others that, and there's nothing wrong with the different types of communicators. I'm just, you know, naming different types. There's others who, you know, parlay a little bit. They don't want to address things too much. You know, they want to sweep it under the rug, take their time. And when it finally does come to a head, you know, they don't really know how to communicate their feelings. They're not that vocal. They want the other person to do the talking and they kind of sit back and confirm or deny. Again, there's different types of communicators. Once you find the type of communicator you are, you then have to think, okay, how do you want to be communicated to? Like, how do you feel love? How do you feel respect? You know, what are your languages? We always hear about like love language, love language, love language. Yes, but do you know that there's also an apology language? Do you know there's an anger language? There's different languages. And what I mean by that, and there's actually books on this, right? You can go ahead and look on Amazon. It's not just about the love language book, but there is an apology language book. There is an anger language book and other things. So, but what I mean by bringing that up is you have to figure out what makes you feel safe and secure and vulnerable enough to like open up and communicate the best way possible without you feeling defensive and without you feeling so argumentative. And that can only happen when you have someone that is on your level of communication. They don't have to be the same type of communicator that you are, but they do have to be self-aware enough to know the type of communicator that they are, so that you all both can actually lay everything on the table and be open about how you like to be spoken to. And this could be something so simple as, like, I don't like to be yelled at. I don't like when you raise your voice. Once you raise your voice at me, honey, I completely clock out. And that comes from just growing up, like my childhood. My father, he never put his hands on me. He never beat me, whooped me, nothing. The most he would do was like get real close to me when he was real serious, like right here in my face. But like my father never cursed at me. He never cursed me out. So there are certain things that I won't tolerate from a man because my own father did not do that with me. You know what I'm saying? So I have like my own personal triggers when it comes to communication, and you need to figure those out as soon as possible, right? So once you know like your standards, your boundaries, things that you will and will not tolerate, you then have to figure out like, okay, what is the wiggle room that you have? Because I married a New Yorker. He's not only a New Yorker, but he's a Caribbean man. He's Haitian. So naturally they're loud. Naturally they're just very boisterous, and you know, they're passionate people, right? And if you ever been in a room with a New Yorker, honey, you could be sitting right here next to them and they are talking loud enough for the people across the room to hear them. That's just how it is, right? And shout out to my New Yorkers watching this. I'm also low-key from New York, okay? That's my second home. So when you think about communication, and you think about your styles of communication, you need to figure out like early on in the dating stage, or even before you get like to full on dating, just a talking stage, what you are willing to tolerate and what you're willing to like grow with a person. Like what are you willing to, you know, lean a little bit and bend a little bit on. Now, if you have like deal breakers where it's like, no, absolutely not, you're never gonna curse at me. The second you curse at me, you're out of here. That's fine. I totally understand. I respect it, because again, I'm someone that I just can't take it. Once you curse at me, boop, I clock out of the conversation. There's nothing left to say. But I realized when I started dating my husband, I had to have some grace and some empathy, because we come from two totally different worlds. Yes, we have so much in common, but we also have other things that are polar opposites. So when it comes to communication, for example, his whole family's loud. Okay, that's just what he's used to. He's accustomed to it. So for me, when we would get into it, and again, this is early on, not like the talking stage, because we were already past that. Like, it ain't really much to debate about when you're in that talking stage. But once we were like already in a full-blown relationship, you know, there were things that would come up, and if whether he's raising his voice or a curse word slipped out, or, you know, I'll be like, whoa, 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 whoa. Immediately, I'm shutting that down. You're wrong, I'm right, and it is what it is, like right then and there. And what I had to realize, and what I should have realized in my talking stage, like way earlier, before I even got to the boyfriend and girlfriend stage with him, this is what I want you, for those of you who are in your single season, your early stages, I want you to set it up now, set yourself up for success now, and think about what are the things that you are willing to compromise on for the right person, for the person that you see the potential in. Now, granted, I always tell people, honey, don't fall in love with potential, because potential is it can go one or two ways, you know? But I do want you to have some discernment to kind of figure out early on in your talking stage, what is something that you're willing to work with a person on? And it doesn't have to be a right or wrong conversation. Like when Jeremiah and I first started, you know, getting deep in our relationship, if we would get into a debate and he did something I didn't like, whether it's raise his voice or let out a curse word or whatever, it wasn't my place to say you're wrong or I'm right. It's more so, I don't like the way that you're communicating with me right now, okay? I don't like the way that you're presenting this right now. Like, I cannot receive this from you right now. Now, was he wrong in my eyes for raising his voice and cursing at me?
Absolutely, because who you talking to? Again,
Who? Not me. My daddy don't talk to me like that. That's when we get in our bag. And you know what I'm talking about. Let me know in the comments if you know what I'm talking about. You know how we get, ladies. We start popping that and just throwing the hands and getting all animated. And what I realized is, if you're already heated as the man and I'm getting heated as a woman, now it's just a firecracker. Now it's just like, if you're fighting fire with fire, and it's not gonna work out. somebody has to be the voice of reason. And I know, ladies, like, you're probably like, well, I'm tired of always being the voice of reason. I'm tired of always being the one that got to do this. I totally understand that, but it goes back to that question. Do you want to be right, or do you want to be married? And that doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice like your morals and your standards and your boundaries. For goodness sake, don't do that. But what I'm asking you is your need to be right, and is your need to walk away from the conversation or the debate or the argument feeling like you won, is your need for that more powerful than your need to build with that person, to really start and share a life with that person? And that's the question I had to start asking myself. When it comes to communication, it is not about being right or wrong. It is about us being a team. Whether we are in the boyfriend-girlfriend stage and, we're early on, we're trying to figure it out, or we are already married or been married 20, 30 years, it doesn't matter. We are supposed to be a team, and I am not right, you are not right. I'm not wrong, you are not wrong. We just have a common goal, and we have two different outlooks and perspectives of how to get there, but that's okay. In this conversation, in this communication, we are going to bridge the gap to get to our shared goal together, because we are a team. So remember what I was saying earlier about this generation and the generations after don't have a tolerance for anything. Like, the first sign of any type of drama, they just leave. Well, not all of them, because we do be seeing on the blogs all this craziness that happens in relationships. But I feel like in my personal life, when I think about the women I talk to, the single women I talk to on a day-to-day basis who are in the dating world, and you can let me know in the comments if you've experienced the same. I feel like there's not enough conflict resolution, there's not enough communication, and that can be the detriment to your journey to find a husband, right? Or for your husband to find you. And I say that because sometimes I think about, like, what is the root of all this? Could it be that social media put so much on blast, and like so many relationships on Front Street, so many things that we thought people were like relationship goals or marriage goals or whatever, and we saw things that were just crumbling. Like, we saw all this drama, these couples that maybe some looked up to, and come to find out it was chaos at home. Like, could it be that? Could it be, the music we started listening to? Like, I don't want to be that auntie, please, I don't. But like, I always think about, what was the shift? Or could it be that we just decided we're not going to tolerate BS anymore? Like, could it be that we just decided we're not going to be the generation like our aunties and our mothers and our great-grandmothers who just sat around and let anything happen? You know what I'm saying? I think that's what I'm leaning towards when I think about the different reasons for this low tolerance our generation has and beyond. Let me know in the comments what you think. But I think it's a combination of a couple of things, but I'm leaning towards more so the fact that we kind of just stood up and we're like, yo, we're fed up. Like somebody pulled the cover off of our eyes and we realized, wow, most of the older generation was miserable. Most of the elders we saw, some of them were even like sleeping in separate beds. They didn't believe in divorce. So we don't want to end up those stories. Like, we don't want to go down that road. And when I think about so many of our elders and our aunties, our moms who grew up not really feeling like they had a voice, they went through all their adulthood just kind of being behind a man, and the man did all the talking, the man made all the decisions. I think that can be another big root of why us as women are so headstrong, to the point where it can be even a huge turnoff. Like, I've had plenty of conversations with not only my husband, but the other men in my life that I trust, like my good brothers, my cousins, and they'll let us know straight up, like, sometimes y'all be doing too much. Y'all be doing the most, and we don't feel heard. And I can't speak for all cultures and communities, so I'm speaking specifically for Black men and women in Black marriages, Black relationships. I think that there's a huge disconnect between Black men and Black women, and it breaks my heart to think of us when I think of like how we're holding down the household. Black women are known to be like the strong Black woman or the strong Black mom, and there's a lot of men who are not stepping up to the plate. And when I talk to my husband about this so often, he's in a fraternity. He has a lot of young men that he mentors. Shout out to Kappa Alpha Psi. And, he'll always talk about the fact that a lot of these young boys, they don't feel heard. They don't feel like the person that they're with is like really listening to them. And, he's even gone so far to tell me that for a while in our relationship, especially early on, he didn't feel like he was really being heard out by me. And to my surprise, honey, I'm like, what? Me? Absolutely not, honey. Of course I listen to you. I am always listening to you. And he's like, no, babe. There's a big difference between like you hearing me and you truly, truly listening to me. There's a huge difference. Like right now, you can turn on the TV and you'll hear it, right? You'll hear the noise, the sound of the TV, but it can turn into like white noise because you're watching this. You're watching me talk in this vlog, right? Or the opposite. You can go start cooking or running an errand or doing something and just keep this vlog running, and then I will start turning into white noise. You'll still hear me, but you're not really actively listening to me, right? So that gets me into the skills. Let's talk about some communication skills, because I feel like one big, huge step that will put you in a good direction in your relationship towards marriage, or just getting out of like that early stage of talking, getting to know each other, but taking that next step, is to learn how to communicate by actively listening. That has to be number one on my list of, do you want to be right or do you want to be married? Like, you have to learn how to be an active listener. I can't tell you how many times I have gone back and forth with my husband, especially early. I mean, yes, we're still early in our marriage. This year we'll only make it 5 years, but for some that's a long time, because honey, people be getting divorced every day. So earlier in our marriage, I would say year 1, year 2, there will be times where we're going back and forth about something, really anything. It doesn't even have to be a debate or an argument. It could just be, we're just conversing. And Jeremiah is sharing something. He could be super passionate about it, or he's just explaining something, and I'm not actively listening. And that can mean I may be scrolling on my phone. I may be fixing my hair, my makeup, getting dressed. I have my attention on something else. And to be a good active listener, you have to give your partner your full attention. And I know that can be hard because we have a lot going on. Like, we have work, some of you have children, some of you are running businesses. There's a lot of things going on that you'd be surprised. Sometimes it's hard to give someone your undivided 100%, 100,000% full attention, but you have to try that. You have to set aside some sacred time for your partner to truly hear them out, especially when there is a problem, especially when there is an issue or there is some type of debate. You have to learn how to become an active listener. Now you may ask, how do you do this? Well, first and foremost, you need to learn how to let the person talk without interruption. And baby, I'm gonna tell you right now, that is hard to do. For me, when my husband's talking, and this is not just early on in our relationship, this is like every day. When he's getting passionate about a point he's trying to make, and I hear something, you ever been talking to somebody, you hear something that you just don't agree with, and you just wanna, just hop in and nitpick and just be like, well, I'll have you know, hold up now. Child, I'm telling you, we're here. I understand. I know where you're coming from. But a part of active listening is letting someone talk without interruption so that they can get into a flow and a rhythm and they can fully let their thoughts out. A lot of times, especially for men, no shade to any men watching this, but ladies, you know what I mean. Sometimes it can be hard for a man to articulate and express his feelings. So when you finally get a man to the point where he actually wants to tell you anything, like, honey, whether it could be about his day, a complaint, a concern, literally anything, let that man talk. If you don't, he might forget. Like, there's been so many times where I will interrupt Jeremiah and say something, and then I'll be like, okay, continue, finish. And he'll be like, dang, I forgot what I was gonna say. And I'm like, what? How do you forget what you're gonna say? Child, I don't know what it is about them, but it must be something with their species. I don't know. But when it comes to us, baby, usually women, we have the gift of gab. We're not going to forget. We're going to remember our points. We have a whole 5-page thesis and essay in MLA format, honey. We're not going to forget, and we got receipts to back it up. So when it comes to conversing with your man, or maybe he's not your man yet, but it's the beginning stages and you want him to be your man, you're going to have to let him have the floor, honey. It's like, give him that imaginary microphone and let him talk, let him complete his sentences, let him get it all out before he forgets. No shade, because he might, okay? And let him get into a rhythm and a flow where he's comfortable expressing himself. Because what can happen, what has happened to me in the past, Jeremiah and I have had to work this out in counseling. Like, we still are in therapy to this day. Let me say this, sidebar. Therapy is not something that you should do as like a reactive thing. You should be proactively going to therapy with your spouse. You should be proactively going to therapy. It's not just about premarital counseling, okay? You should be doing it like you get a tune-up or oil change, you maintain your car, you gotta maintain your relationship. So this is something Jeremiah and I actively work on in counseling. I have a habit of interrupting him, jumping in when I have to make my point real quick. I'd be like, oh, let me just say something real fast, real quick. And then I realize, wow, he's not gonna feel heard. Sometimes I don't realize it that right there in the moment, but later on I'll think about it, I'm like, dang, I want him to open up, and I know it's hard for black men to open up, child. Historically, most of them have not been raised with a safe space to express their emotions, express their feelings. So if you're someone who wants to date and or marry a black man, this is definitely going to be for you. Again, I cannot put all black men in the same bucket. I'm not going to do that. But historically, black men have not had a safe space to communicate openly when it comes to their feelings, okay? We just know that. That's just a known thing. If you know a black man, you understand. If you have a brother, uncle, dad, cousin, you understand what I'm saying, right? So what I realized when it came to Jeremiah, I'm like, yo, why don't you just express yourself? Why don't you just tell me? He's like, don't you realize that when I do, you always cut me off? Don't you realize that when I do, you always have to interject and say your little points or be petty and give me a little jab? Like, don't you realize? I'm like, dang, I didn't even realize I was doing that. And that's why I want to talk to y'all. Sometimes we subconsciously do these things and we don't realize the ramifications of it. We don't realize the consequences that it's happening. Like, and I don't want to put the whole burden on us. Like, again, we are not the sole reason why black men don't feel heard. Let me slow roll it back. I'm not saying that, but I do believe that when it comes to marriages, relationships, we do contribute to them not opening up to us, and we don't even realize it's happening. I'm only speaking from my personal experience and the experience I can literally tell you about. Well, I'm not going to say names, but the people closest to me who are in healthy and even not so healthy relationships. Like, these are open conversations that I have very often, and I'm here to help you, to give you these tools. And active listening is one of the best tools that you can start practicing now, whether you are in a relationship or not, you are full-blown married, engaged, it doesn't matter. Learn how to become an active listener. Learn how to allow your partners to have the floor. Let them complete their sentences, even if it's something you don't agree with, even if it's something you know is not correct. Like, if they're retelling a story and their recollection is way off, guess what? There's always three sides to every story. It's going to be your perception, his perception, and then the overall perception that lies somewhere in the middle, right? Because how you saw the situation versus how he saw it, both of y'all's feelings are valid, okay? Remember, it's not about being right. It's about the team. It's about the partnership. You know what I'm saying? I'm not like really well versed in sports, but I do know that, like, if two people are on the same team, they're both trying to score in the same goal. You know what I'm saying? So let's say there's a coach that's running a play. How you see the play versus how your teammate sees it, it could be the same play, but two totally different outlooks on how we're gonna get to this goal. And that's normal because you are two people coming from two totally different walks of life, two totally different life experiences, the things you've been through, they have shaped your individual perspective. So it is okay if you see something different than your spouse or your partner. That's normal. And I want you to normalize, not normalize toxicity and arguing, no, but normalize conflict and not seeing eye to eye on certain things, because you probably didn't marry like the 100% version of yourself. Like, we always say, like, oh, our partner is like our other half, our better half. But also, yes, two things can be true. You can marry somebody that you have so much in common with. You are so compatible. But just because you're compatible doesn't mean that you're not going to have stark differences. And I think that is the beauty of a successful and healthy marriage. You're not supposed to agree on everything. You're supposed to merge two totally different walks of life and merge it together where your experiences and their experiences come together and form a beautiful union. Your differences are what brings you together to make you stronger. Now, another part of active listening that most people don't think about, it's not good enough to give someone your full attention. Like, it's not just good enough to give them your eye contact and be shaking your head yes and hearing them out. You also have to make sure that you're not like planning your response before they finish. Hear me out. So this is something I started doing. I didn't even realize I was doing it. Like, I realized that I was always interrupting Jeremiah and cutting him off and injecting my opinion and throwing jabs and being petty, like, early on. And to the point where he was like, just go ahead, just talk. You're gonna talk anyway, just go ahead. And I'm like, okay, just finish, get it out. And as he would be talking and making his point, I'm physically looking at him, right? I'm giving him my full attention. I'm just sitting there, my mouth is not moving, but honey, my mind is going a mile a minute, honey. I am only listening to respond. I'm only listening so I can hurry up and get my point across. That's not good, babe. That's not it. That's not good communication skills, okay? That's not active listening. That's just you saving face and portraying yourself as an active listener just so you can hurry up and get your point across the second that they stop talking. And you'll know if you do this by like thinking about the conversations or the healthy debates or the heated debates that you have with your partner. If the second they close their mouth and put a period on the end of their sentence, you already have a whole paragraph ready, 9 times out of 10, you were not active listening. Because if you were active listening and really giving them your full attention, you would need time to digest what they said. And that's how I do like a gut check on myself. And I'm way more self-aware. I'm not perfect, but I'm way more self-aware now when I have heated debates and discussions with Jeremiah, because I'll check myself. Like if he's talking and I'm truly doing a good job at active listening, because it is something I have to practice, right? Like most of us aren't born with the greatest listening skills. So if I'm doing a good job, that should mean that when he's done with his sentence, when he's completed his thought, he puts a period at the end, right? It should be like a little bit of a gap right there before I just jump and respond. It should be a little bit of a space where I had to take some time to process and think about what he said. Because why? You should also be thinking before you speak. That's something else you have to consider. A lot of us get into these debates and these arguments and these heated conversations, these spicy conversations, and we say the first thing that pops in our head. And that usually leads to a spiral domino effect of like insults and maybe even disrespect. And you end up in a fight or flight mode. You end up getting very defensive because, oh, you said this, well, I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna one up you. And that's not teamwork. It's not. Do you want to be right or do you want to be married? I'm gonna keep asking you. I'm gonna keep asking you because you have to really evaluate how you communicate with the person that you love. If this is somebody you really want to spend the rest of your life with, somebody that you see as the parent to your children, like even if you're not having no children, the dog parent, dog mom, plant mom, you know, whatever you guys want to parent together or nothing at all, it doesn't matter. If you see this as your other half, your rib, for the men listening, you know, your missing puzzle piece. Don't you love that person enough to want them to feel heard, want them to feel valued? Don't you want to walk away from the debate, the argument, the heated conversation, feeling empowered? Or do you want to walk away feeling worse than when you started? Because that's what's going to happen. If you don't learn how to become an active listener, if you don't learn how to give your partner space to communicate and articulate, even when it's something you do not agree with, guess what? You don't have to agree with them. Like, you're not their parent. And that is something that I had to learn, honey. I am not Jeremiah's mama. He dang sure ain't my daddy. Like, we're not meant to govern our partners. We're not meant to like form their opinions for them and tell them how to think, tell them how to feel. If you genuinely don't agree with anything the person says, and the more and more you let them talk and the more and more it comes out and you realize like, ooh, I really don't like the way you think about pretty much anything, that's a good indication that y'all don't need to be together. And that leads me to my next point. Having open and honest communication is going to be the key to you weeding out the people who are not supposed to be in your life. And that's literally with anything, not just relationships, but that's relationships like platonic friendships, coworkers, literally anything, honey. You have to have open and honest communication, because if you sit back and bite your tongue, if you just sweep stuff under the rug, if you don't really speak your mind out of the fear of losing the person, honey, years later down the road, you're going to be absolutely miserable. And that's how so many of our aunties, our grandmas, our mama and thems, like that's how they were, because they didn't speak up. Now, granted, most of them come from a time where like you didn't have the freedom to just be speaking up. Like, let's not get it twisted. Women's rights and just even our position that we have now, it ain't been that long, right? We couldn't just be outspoken. Like, we couldn't even get a bank loan and get a credit card in our name in the last like what 40, 50 years. Like, a lot of this stuff is very, very new. So when I speak about being open and honest and the difference between us and our elders, we are in a much better position now than ever before, to be honest and to be open and to really say like, hey, I'm not dealing with this. I'm putting my foot down. This is my boundary. But in order to do that, you have to have self-awareness and have confidence and know what you want. And a lot of us are going into the dating world not even knowing what we want. We just want marriage. Well, what do you want your marriage to look like? We just want to be in love. Well, what is your definition of love? Like, what is your whole vision? It can't just be you have a wedding dress, a nice wedding ring, a fancy house, a white picket fence, a nice car, and a dog, and maybe a kid or two. That can't be the bar. That bar is very low. Honey, you can get all that on your own. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can get, well, maybe you don't want to have a wedding dress on your own, but like, you can get yourself some nice rings, nice jewelry, a nice car, house, fence, and a dog by yourself. You don't need a man for that. But for your vision of marriage, if that's all you have, honey, that's all you're gonna get. You need to figure out right now in your single season or in your dating season, or if you're engaged or whatever season you're in, You need to get very serious about what your definition of true love looks like. What does it feel like? What does it sound like? What does the communication look like? Does it look like you all confront things right when it happens? Right here, let's not wait a minute longer. Let's talk about it right now. That's how Jeremiah and I are. Well, it's more so that's how I was, and like I kind of like trained him to be that way. As bad as it sounds, like before he would go days without wanting to talk about a topic. I'm like, oh my God, I'm pacing back and forth like, honey, I cannot wait that long. We need to talk about it now. We need to address this now. So we kind of like merge and bridge the gap where we might not talk about it right then and there, but we don't let things fester too long. Like, these are things that you have to decide. What type of relationship or marriage do you want? Do you communicate right then and there? Do you wait and let each other cool off and go your separate ways and then come back? Again, there's no right or wrong, okay? It's not about you being right, but it's about you being in a healthy relationship, a healthy marriage. And that's another thing I want to make sure I'm clear on. You cannot let things fester. It's totally okay if you want to, let the person calm down, you go your separate ways, take a breather, come back with a clear mind, clear head. Yes, that's totally fine. But to put conversations on the back burner week after week, month after month, year after year, honey, absolutely not. You can't be letting things build up, because what's gonna happen is one day it's all gonna
explode.
It's gonna come to a head, honey, and you may not be able to handle all that.
I want you to do your very best to avoid keeping your emotions bottled up and keeping your feelings bottled up. Do your very best to find a middle ground, to learn how to communicate openly, respectfully, and freely, and honestly, right? Because if you try to sugarcoat things, if you try to say like, oh, well, I felt this way, but it's not that bad, and it really is that bad, you're gonna regret it later, because it basically means you're living in a lie, okay? And another point about open and honest communication, you wanna make sure that you remember that golden phrase. It's not what you say, but how you say it. That is gonna carry you through so many different debates, so many different conversations, honey. Sometimes the person cannot receive what you're saying because of how you're saying it. Check your tone. Woo, baby.
Check your tone.
There has been so many times, getting triggered just thinking about it. So many times in past relationships, and even in my marriage, like with Jeremiah, but just across the board, since I started dating in probably middle school, when I hear somebody say something in a nasty way, or just like in a smart way, just, ooh, it is not what you say, but how you said it. What are you doing here? What are you doing here? Same sentence. I said the same sentence, 2 different ways, but you are gonna receive it very differently. And that can be for anything. It doesn't even have to be like an argument. It doesn't have to be like where you're in a debate. It could literally be like you're coming from the store, you're coming home, and the person forgot something. Like, hey, yo, did you get the bread? Did you remember to get the bread? You see that? Because if I say, yo, did you get the bread? That tone of voice, that little, kind of like a little nasty tone, that lets my husband know that I don't think he got that bread. I think he forgot it, because he probably forgot it the last 5 times, right? So I'm like, yo, did you get the bread? That's a tone of like, I don't trust that you really got the bread. But if I said, did you get the bread? Or, hey, did you remember to get the bread? That's a little bit different. Same sentence, give or take a couple words, same sentence, but it's the tone. I'm telling you, tone is everything. Tonality, check it, check it, check it. Also, something else that'll help, another tip that I have when it comes to building up your strong communication for your relationship, okay, in your future marriage or your current marriage, try not always focusing on the negatives. When I think about my relationship, I think about like even how I am as a parent and how I want to be, and how like I had relationship with my parents, and I never like to be reminded of all the bad things I was doing. Like, no child wants to feel like that, right? No child wants to see this all waved in their face. No, don't do this, don't do that. Nobody wants to feel that way, right? So apply that same logic to your relationship. Like, do you want to be reminded of all the bad things you've been doing? All the times you forgot to take out the trash, you forgot to put the cap on the toothpaste, you forgot to put the toilet seat down. Like, do you want to be reminded of all the bad things you're doing or the things that you forgot? Or will it be better if you're also told the positive things you've been doing? I'm telling you, positive reinforcement is something we used to do like when I worked in the school system. It worked like a charm. It worked like a charm. Instead of telling my former students, oh, you did this, you did that, you forgot this, you forgot that, why aren't you doing this, why aren't you doing that? I would lead with grace. I would lead with softness. I would lead with honey before I pour that salt and vinegar, okay? You cannot attract bees with vinegar. You can't attract them with salt. You got to have some honey. So try thinking of more positive things to tell your partner, and do it at random. Positive reinforcements are so important. I want you to try this exercise out with your spouse, your partner, whoever. think about at least 5 times in the next coming week that you can point out to them something positive, something good, okay? Some good news, right? And it can be at a most random time. Like, you can literally say, you know, babe, I'm so proud of you for insert accomplishment here. Or, oh, I really like that meal that you cooked, if they, you know, made something you liked. Or, you know, I really appreciate when you made me feel heard recently during our discussion. Or, you know, I really love the way you showed up for little Timmy at his basketball game. Like, just pick 5 different things that you want to point out throughout the upcoming week. And I promise you, it's going to make them feel good, okay? Nobody wants to hear all the bad things they're doing all day long, okay? Remember, we want to use positive reinforcement. And no, this is not manipulative. No, we're not playing reverse psychology or any type of mind games. We are simply showing our partner a little bit more appreciation. We are showing up for them in different ways, okay, in this season. We're gonna work on that. That is a big part of communication. Another thing I want you to try is pointing out things that that you want to change, or like things that you don't necessarily like, but fine tuning how you speak about those moments. For example, instead of saying, you know, you pissed me off when you did this, try not to lead with you. Try to lead with some I statements. Like, I felt upset in that moment because I felt hurt. I felt sad. I felt unheard. I felt this, I that. Like, make it about you to take the blame and the onus off of them. Even if you know that they caused the distress, even if you know that they caused the disrespect, like whatever it is, try not leading with you, because that can feel like an attack. Again, we are trying to fine tune and strengthen our communication skills, because do you want to be right or do you want to be married? You have to ask yourself, okay? And I shouldn't just say, do you want to be right or do you want to be married? I should also ask, do you want to be right or do you want to be happily married, okay? In a healthy marriage, you know what I'm saying? So try using more I statements instead of you did this, you did that, you said blah, blah, blah. No, scale it back a little bit and use I statements. Make it about how you are feeling, and then bring them into the conversation to try to like let them put themselves in your shoes. That's where empathy comes in. We gotta have some empathy, y'all. We gotta give each other grace. Usually 9 times out of 10, when someone is offended by something that happened in the relationship, it was not intentional. Like, the offense didn't come from someone moving out of malice, okay? And if the person is moving out of malice to hurt you, then you don't need to be with them in the first place, okay? I'm talking about the spouse or the partner that you know really cares for you and really loves you. 9 times out of 10, what you are disagreeing about, or what you are having this argument, this conversation, this spicy debate, it is a misunderstanding. It is 2 people looking at a scenario from 2 totally different perspectives. You all are coming from 2 totally different walks of life. Remember, you are merging 2 different lives into one union, okay? You are merging 2 different humans, 2 different brains, 2 different hearts into one union, one person, one body, okay? So I want you to think about this as you are communicating with your partner, whether you're in the early dating stage or you've been married, engaged, whatever. Think about how you can do a better job of showing empathy, showing compassion, and knowing that, like, okay, this is not personal. Because a lot of times when we're really upset and we're trying to be right and we're going really hard, we're taking things personal. Get off the defense and get on offense. Y'all are on the same team. Okay, so this next piece of advice are for those of you who are super busy. You and your partner have a lot going on, whether it's jobs and hobbies, side hustles, maybe you have children. You just got a lot going on and you don't always have the time to talk. You don't always have the time for like deep one-on-one conversations. You all need to set aside what Jeremiah and I like to call the State of the Union address. You know how in our government we have a State of the Union where the president comes and addresses everything that's going on? You need the State of the Union address for your household, okay? Or even if you don't live together, it's okay. Doesn't matter. State of the Union for your relationship, all right? You need to know what is going on. How are we feeling? How are we doing mentally, emotionally, spiritually? You cannot just be walking around day to day doing the same old routine, living your life, and you're not even checking in with each other, because eventually somebody's gonna crumble. That is how things happen, like depression and other things that are very severe. Like, you need to check in with your partner and figure out what is going on in their heads, because a lot of people are so used to just grinding, like especially in this economy and just how the world is, we're so used to just being laser focused and locked in on our work and our goals and sometimes we forget about self-care. We neglect ourselves. And again, you don't want to spiral out of control to the point where you can't even show up in your relationship because you don't have an outlet to talk to someone. You don't have an outlet in a safe space, and your partner should be that safe space, okay? So if you are in a relationship right now, or you're getting, closer to a strong and serious relationship, I want you to set aside some time, even if it's just once a week or bi-weekly, where you have a state of the union, where you two sit with free of distraction, uninterrupted time with each other. It could be something so simple as a shower. That was me and Jeremiah's favorite things to do when we first started dating. Before we had kids, definitely. We had a lot more time. Before we were married, we didn't have businesses. We were just working our jobs. He went to work, I went to work, and we would come home, maybe go to the gym, and then we would get in the shower and we would talk. That was uninterrupted time. We didn't have our phones in the shower, obviously. The TV wasn't on, the music wasn't playing. It was literally just him and I in the shower talking. And obviously, you would think like, oh, well, the shower, you were just talking, right? No, really, we were talking. Like, that was our intimate time. And it was also like our most vulnerable time because like we ain't got no clothes on. Like, I see you, you see me. And it's deeper than just the physical. It was like an emotional connection that we had. And I'm also saying had because unfortunately, life has just gotten super busy. We're parents now. We both are running businesses. It's a lot. We don't always get the time to check in and have like our shower therapy session, what we used to call it. But whenever we can, we do try our best to make that time. And I'm not saying your therapy session or your state of the union has to be in the shower. I'm not saying that. But it needs to be somewhere where you're both comfortable. It could be in the car. It could be out to dinner. If you're gonna talk about something deep though, I would suggest don't go to dinner. Like maybe you should say that for like in the house conversation. If you don't live together, pick a spot, whether your house or their house. Laying in the bed at night talking, turn your phone off, turn the TV off. Wherever you're gonna do it, make sure that you are having uninterrupted time to have the State of the Union talk. And before you go into it though, you both have to have an understanding that this is a time for us to talk uninterrupted, no distractions, and no judgment. We listen, but we do not judge, okay? Because the worst thing you can do is set aside the sacred time for you all to have your State of the Union, and then somebody says something that makes you, clutch your pearls, or you feel away, or like, why would you say that? No, absolutely not. The point of this is for you to talk with no filter. Not disrespectfully, though. There's a difference. All right. I'm not saying just say whatever the first thing come out your mouth. No, I'm saying fine tune your responses to make sure you're respectful, but be honest and be raw and be unfiltered. Okay. And this could be a topic about anything. You could be talking about finances. You could be talking about your love life, the bedroom. You could be talking about family issues, your children, your relationship, your friendships that you think maybe aren't good anymore between, your friends, their friends, like literally anything you could think of that is bothering you. Put it out on the table. Air out your grievances, but in a healthy and respectful manner. I'm trying to tell you, having a good State of the Union or State of the Relationship conversation at least once a month if you can. Baby, I be trying to do it every week. I'm not gonna lie. I'm always ready to talk, okay? I'm a yapper. But trying to make sure that you set aside that sacred time, it is going to help you so much in the long run. Because when things do come up, like let's say during your State of the Union talk, it's not that much to put on the table, right? You air a couple of grievances out, you circle back to some old conversations, and then you're good. If you do this on a regular, when something big does happen, when something major occurs, it'll be nothing. It'll be like you're exercising a muscle because you're so used to talking it out. You're so used to having those conversations about any and everything. When something major does happen that normally one of you or both would want to sweep it under the rug, you're so used to talking and communicating openly and having that State of the Union address, it'll be so easy for you to get through that situation. It'll be that much easier for you to overcome that trial, that tribulation. I am telling you, communication is a muscle. You have to work it out. Compare it to going to the gym. If you are trying to, get your biceps pumped and get strong in your arms or your back or whatever muscle you're trying to work out, if you go hard in the gym and you work it out consistently, it's going to grow. It's going to get stronger. But then if you take a couple months off, okay, when the time comes around for you to get back in the gym again, what's going to happen? It's going to be painful. It's going to hurt, or it's not going to happen. You're not going to feel like it. That is how I want you to look at communication. It is a muscle. You have to flex those skills. You have to practice. And I would rather you do with the smaller things, with the day-to-day things, having those check-ins with your partner, even if it's just 10 to 15 minutes every day or every other day, having that open conversation and communication about little things here and there, about your day at work, about the kids, about what you got going on in your personal, your hobbies, etc. talking more often will help you for when the big topic comes. You know, it's like lifting small weights. You lift small weights, and eventually a big weight is going to be needed to be lifted off the rack, okay? That is how I want you to look at communication. Now, my last piece of advice, there's really two parts to this. I already talked about having empathy earlier, right? So I want to touch on that a little bit more. But having empathy while also remaining solutions oriented is extremely important. Like, you want to hold space for your partner when you are talking things out and giving each other's point of views and sides and really actively listening, right? You want to hold space and really validate your partner's feelings even if you don't agree. And that is a gem right there. Even if you don't agree, you need to be able to have enough empathy where you can put yourself in their shoes, where you at least comprehend and understand why they did what they did. For example, I'm gonna take it away from relationships for a second. Like, let me just think about like my toddler, right? She's 2, going on 3. She does a lot of things that I just obviously don't agree with. You know, like she is terrorizing the house most of the time, right? She's in her toddler phase. So it could be a moment where we're just chilling, sitting on the couch, maybe watching TV, just relaxing, and I notice, oh, it's been a little while since she's used the bathroom. Like, you know, we're making sure that she's staying potty trained. We're almost there. We're so close, right? She still sleeps in diapers overnight, pull-ups overnight, but during the day, she's in regular underwear. So I know my child. I know that eventually she's gonna get so caught up in whether she's playing with her blocks and stuff or she's drawing, painting, watching TV, she might just forget and she's gonna pee on herself. And I'll be like, Gigi, do you have to use the bathroom? No. Gigi, do you have to go potty? No. I don't agree with this right now in this very moment because I know she probably has to use the bathroom. It's been a couple of hours, but she doesn't feel like getting up, right? So eventually I'm like, Gigi, we need to go to the bathroom. She's like, no, I don't have to go. Okay. On one hand, I might just let her sit and chill. And then next thing you know, I'm like, okay, well, I'll take her in 10 minutes and make her go. And then I get busy and I forget, right? And then she pees on herself. Am I irritated? Am I frustrated? Could this have been prevented? Absolutely. Do I agree that she just wanted to sit there and just pee instead of going to the toilet? It's so much easier, girl, just go to the toilet. Absolutely. Like, I don't agree with this. I hate that she did that. It's so irritating, but I understand why she did it. Why? Because A, she's 2, she's a toddler. I mean, it is what it is, right? She's not potty trained. But does she know better? Yes, she knows better. However, I have empathy because I understand she's sitting here coloring or playing or painting, whatever she's doing, and she's not thinking about the bathroom. And then when mommy brings up the point of going to the bathroom, she's irritated because she doesn't want to stop what she's doing. She's having fun. She knows that if she has to stop and go all the way to the bathroom, she's thinking she's going to miss out on something. Is that logical? No, because the coloring book is still going to be there. The painting, whatever you're doing, the Play-Doh, the TV show, whatever you're doing, honey, it's still going to be there when you come back. You're not in the bathroom that long. But I understand, and I put myself in her shoes. I get into her mind. I get it. I have empathy for my toddler, right? Now, as a mother, it's easy for me to have empathy for my child. But honey, as an adult, a spouse, baby, I don't have that much empathy for my man. I'm not gonna lie. I had to practice it. I literally had to practice empathy for Jeremiah. And that sounds so bad, but it is what it is. It's human nature. As a parent, or even if you don't have children, just as an adult, you can 9 times out of 10 rationalize and like have empathy and understanding for a child because like their frontal lobe is not developed yet. They're a kid. They don't have logic. But as an adult, a lot of times when adults disappoint us, whether it's your coworker, your friend, your man, your parent, we don't have that same level of empathy because we're looking like, yo, you should know this. You're a whole grown man. Why don't you know this already? Why don't you understand this already? But y'all, that is not compassion. That's not empathy. You want to show, listen, think of how God does us. Think about the Lord. Think about how Jesus loves us so much. He always forgives us. Now, I'm not telling you to always forgive. Hold on. Don't get played like a fool. Hold on now. But if you're with somebody who's not intentionally hurting you, okay? Who's not intentionally doing things out of malice and spite, okay? Let me clarify. You can have forgiveness and empathy for them. You really can. Like, if you can just take a quick second, right? And put yourself in their shoes and just try your best to see where they're coming from. This comes from active listening, being mute, being quiet, and really comprehending what they're saying. And just try to picture things how they did. It doesn't mean that you have to agree with them. Think about how God loves us. God does not agree with probably most of the things that we do, right? Because we're human, we mess up, we make mistakes. Like, we were born into sin. It just is what it is, right? God does not agree, but He understands because he has compassion for us. He loves us, right? He has empathy for us. So when you think about your spouse and the person you want to be with for the rest of your life, think about God's love. Think about that unconditional love. Even though, hold on now, I do believe that your love should have conditions, okay? I just want to make sure I'm clarifying because I don't want you staying in a toxic situationship or relationship and being like, well, Shay told me to have empathy and stick around. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Have discernment, okay? But when you think about God's love and how he just has so much compassion for us, I want you to do a better job with having compassion for your spouse, having compassion for your partner. When y'all are getting into it, going head to head and getting into this heated debate, think of that person as your teammate. Think about y'all are on the same side of the playing field and y'all have a common goal that you're trying to achieve together. And just back it on up, take a deep breath, take a step back, a couple of steps back, and reevaluate your tone, how you're presenting yourself, your facial expressions, your body language. There's so much that comes into good communication, y'all. There's so much that goes into it. And no, I'm not expecting you to master this overnight. I'm really not, because you have to undo and unlearn years of bad communication and negative communication, unhealthy communication habits. It's gonna take some time, right? And I'm not perfect, okay? This August will be 5 years I've been married. By all means, I don't have it all figured out, but I can tell you, based off the mistakes I know that I made and things I knew I had to do better if I wanted to have a healthy, successful marriage. And I'm telling you right now, a lot of it comes from having a lack of empathy. Try your best to not always agree with your partner, but to see where they're coming from and to hold space for them and to validate their feelings. Because 9 times out of 10, a lot of these debates we get into in these heated conversations, we just want to feel heard. We just want you to know where we're coming from. You don't have to agree. We just really want you to say, okay, I see why you felt that way. I do. I don't agree with it. Here's how matter of fact, you don't even have to say that. Let me back up. You don't have to say I don't agree. You can change your language and say, well, here's how I would have handled it. Here's how I would have approached it. Or better yet, here's how I would like you to approach me next time. Here's how I would like you to handle me next time. These are more solution-driven and solution-oriented conversations that you need to be having. And that brings me to my very last point. You have to focus on the solution, not the problem. Yes, you need to outline the problem, obviously. We need to figure out why we're here. But once you have established what the problem is, once you know like what happened, what the disrespect was or what the miscommunication was or whatever the issue is, do not focus too long on the problem. Please acknowledge it, spell it out, type it out, write it out, and keep it moving. Get to the solution. I'm telling y'all, there's been so many times where Jeremiah and I would waste hours. And really, I'm not gonna lie, it's really me. Because he can walk away and want to talk about it later. But me, honey, I'm like, no, we're going to talk about this now. I don't like that you did this. I hate that you did this. I don't like it. I don't like it. We get it. You're beating a dead horse. You're just beating the dead horse with the bat. We understand. Don't spend hours talking about the mistake the person made or the misstep or the mishap. Like, don't spend hours on that, okay? Give them a little grace, all right? Acknowledge their feelings of why they did it or how it happened and you know that they're apologetic, whatever, and move on to the solution. How can we fix this next time? It could be something so small as them forgetting to put the toilet seat down in the middle of the night. You fell into the toilet because you couldn't see. It could be something that small versus something really big, like they made you feel uncomfortable when you were out. Maybe they were speaking to someone you didn't like them speaking to. I don't know. It could be something huge. Like, I'm telling you, y'all, the same logic applies to every scenario. Try to maintain solutions oriented. Do not focus hours and hours on the problem. We know what the problem is. We understand how we got here. Now let's figure out how we can get out of here together. Let's figure out how we can move forward together, because we are a team, y'all. Teamwork makes the dream work. Remember that. And also remember, do you want to be right or do you want to be married? And not just any kind of married. Do you want to be in a healthy, happy marriage? A God-fearing marriage. Marriage where God is the nucleus, where you both put God first. Okay? That helps too. Hello? That's really the key to all of this. Okay? Because nobody has more empathy and compassion than the Lord. All right? He forgives us every time. Even when I don't even know how he does it. He just clean slate. We are so undeserving of God's love. So Put your feelings, your all your negativity and your feelings aside, your negative feelings, okay? And try to focus on a little bit more positive feelings when it comes to your partner. And know that if God can forgive you every single time when you misstep and you do things you didn't mean, so you slip up, you can have compassion for your partner. That is not to be confused with sticking around to be played and bullied and abused and all the other crazy things that I don't think you should be staying around for. That's not the same. I'm strictly talking about the lack of good communication. If you really want to be with this person for the rest of your life, okay, or you want to at least try to get there and try to figure out this is your person, work on building your healthy communication skills, work on having empathy, and work on focusing on more of the positives. Work on saying less of you, and more of I felt this way, I took it this way. How can we come to a solution? How can we fix this for a resolution? How can we move forward? Like, start walking, talking, and acting like a team, okay? That is the only way that you are going to get to that ultimate goal of a happy, healthy marriage, okay? That is my prayer for you. I hope that this helped. Let me know in the comments. Did I strike a nerve? Did I strike a trigger? Could you relate to any of the things that I talked about in this vlog? Because, honey, baby, I am speaking from experience, okay? All the things that I share with you, without trying to tell too much of my business, I'm speaking from literally things that I went through or people very close to me who have, confided in me and Jeremiah have went through. I can promise you it's not something that can just happen overnight, building good communication, especially because you have to unlearn so many things, but it can happen. I am a living, walking, talking, breathing testament of that, all right? And I'm not perfect. I still got some things to fix, some things to work on, but remember, good communication is a muscle. You have to continue working at it. And when you do, you will realize it is not about being right, but it's about being in a healthy and happy marriage. Thank you so much for tuning in. Love y'all so much, and until next time, bye.